Hello and welcome. I'm Laura, and this is Jen.
Hello.
Thank you so much for tuning in to tonight's premiere screening and Q&A for the new AMC Plus original series, Ragdoll.
This marks our first event since the festival this June, and I've got to say, it feels good to be back. Laura, as our resident British crime series expert, how much are you looking forward to the rest of the series after that episode?
Oh, I am looking forward to it so much. My interests in television are very much like British folks and some murder. So anytime that those cross over, I'm excited. And it has crossed over quite well in this amazing series, Ragdoll.
Yes, the British do TV murder exceptionally well.
Don't they? I don't know anything about their real murder capabilities. Like, we're not going to get into that. But the British TV murders are chef's kiss. Good stuff.
Yes, and it does not hurt to have Killing Eve bona fides and an absurdly charming cast to boot.
Oh, they are so delightful. And I can't wait to hear what they have to say about their other co-star.
You mean the one that's sewn together?
Yeah, that one. I want to know.
Great. Okay. Well, let's get to it. Thank you to AMC Plus for being amazing partners as always, and for concocting such a delicious themed cocktail for tonight's festivities. The Ragdoll Rouge is definitely going in the drink rotation.
I am mixing one up as soon as we're off this intro.
And thank you to everyone joining us from home. Ragdoll officially premieres
November 11th
exclusively on AMC Plus. Remember, you're getting a sneak peek here. So remember to tell your friends how much you loved it. And of course, tune in for the rest of the series.
And you can always find us on Twitter and Instagram at ATX Festival to let us know all of your Ragdoll theories. But no spoilers. We are a spoiler-free zone, so keep those off our internet. And always make sure that you use the hashtag RagdollAMC. Hashtag RagdollAMC.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And now, please enjoy this exclusive Q&A with the cast and creatives of Ragdoll.
After you, ma'am.
Right leg belongs to a black male, the right arm to an East Asian female, and a Caucasian male head.
Well, it's not the strangest thing I've ever seen.
Top 10?
7th?
So, no evidence, no witnesses.
Let's catch this killer.
From the gallows.
There are 6 people sewn together into the whatever we're calling it.
Loco Chanel.
Edward Different Hands.
The Ragdoll? Ragdoll it is.
You're kidding me? IT get to name our grisly discoveries.
I really want to catch this guy. But is it smart to involve Rose?
You want to know what a psychotic liability like me is doing back at work.
Yeah, that's fair.
What is that?
Nathan Rose. You're on his kill list.
Yes.
The killer sees us. Right for us.
We need backup. Whatever he's got planned, it ends with Rose.
Scheiße.
Sometimes it feels like only our mistakes have any consequences.
Welcome to this exciting ATX panel for Ragdoll, the AMC series that takes the crime thriller to a whole new level of macabre. In Ragdoll, Detective D.S. Rose has been recently reinstated to the London police when he and his colleagues D.I. Baxter and D.C. Edmunds are called to a grim crime scene, at the center of which is a grotesque form resulting from the body parts of 6 different victims sewn together. Soon after, Rose receives a hit list and it names 6 more victims, including himself. And that sends the team on a race against time to track down the perpetrator they've nicknamed the Ragdoll Killer. So I'm pleased to have this conversation with the cast and creators of Ragdoll. Joining us today are executive producer Sally Woodward-Gentle, lead writer and executive producer Freddie Syborn, Star Henley Lloyd-Hughes. And co-star Thalissa Teixeira and Lucy Hale. Welcome, everyone. It's so great to chat with you about this series. I'm really excited to get into it. So let's start with the Ragdoll itself. That is one of the freakiest things I have seen on TV in a long time. And it makes me think about the old lore of the movie Aliens, Alien actually. And the reason I thought about that is there's the story that Ridley Scott had the cast come on and see one of the most shocking moments without knowing what was going to happen. Did that happen here with the Ragdoll, or did you see the form before the characters did?
I think it's good for the actors to speak to that, because the program makers had seen it.
We were hinted. Thalissa, we all had a special relationship with the beautiful piece of art that was made. Full disclosure, it appeared in. We saw photographs of some of the body parts. Right, that's right, isn't it? We saw some of the
evidence. We'd seen evidence
that, as part of the broader investigation. Having said that, encountering the full 3D form was another kettle of fish, wouldn't you?
I mean, the work that they did was unreal. You know, the people that made the Ragdoll, it looked like a real person, and it felt like a real person, and it was thawing like real body parts, like liquid dripping from its limbs. And I had a particularly shocking day with it, because the night before I'd gone in a kind of dark web of black hole of real murder investigations till some stupid o'clock. And when I saw the Ragdoll, I kind of had the realization that everything that's bad is real, and properly freaked out. And Lucy was amazing, and my makeup artist Branka saved me from basically a mini panic attack, because it was completely shocking, especially when the characters have to deal with it in a very sort of mechanical, medical, mundane kind of way to kind of keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I personally love the morbid, I love the gruesome, so I kind of wanted to get a sneak peek of it, but I think we all kind of made the choice to only to see the real thing on the day of that scene in the first episode where we actually see the Ragdoll hung from the ceiling. Yeah, I mean, it's disturbing, but I was intrigued
by the individual body hairs sewn into the chest.
The detail.
The dental work was astonishing. I'm peering into that mouth with a torch, and it's just beautiful work. It's I don't know who the orthodontist was, but it's astonishing.
No, they were incredible. Sally, didn't you say that they had been working on that for months, right?
Yeah.
The prosthetics group.
Exactly. And Toby McDonald, who's our lead director on the show, thinking about how to hang the body, what way round should it hang, and thinking about the various bits that would drop down. So, the eventual pose that they came up with, I think was really rather brilliant, and it does look like some sort of weird Renaissance painting as well.
Yeah, it is an iconic silhouette as well, Melanie. It wouldn't surprise me if, like the Air Jordan logo, for decades to come, this was going to be emblazoned on tracksuits and
the
trainer line. Yeah, Freddie told me he's got big plans for some trainer merch, and that's really his main pension pot that he's excited about. So you heard it here first, little ATX exclusive there.
So let's talk a little bit about that angle, because one of the things that I laughed aloud at after watching each character, after watching Rose and Baxter and Edmunds process seeing this body, seeing the Ragdoll, they start making jokes and trying to call it like Donatella Versucher, different nicknames. Is that something that you all came up with? Did you kind of bounce things around on set?
It's Cyborn.
Yeah.
That's a better one than is in the script.
Yes,
I was like, that's really good.
That's stronger, and that's embarrassing for me
That's blown my mind.
So long, and I insisted
saying
that no one should improvise. I said, no one's going to beat what I've got on paper. No one's going to beat it. No, you can try for 100 years. No one's going to beat it.
And then Melanie's just gone and done it.
So, yeah,
Melanie's
there you go.
banned.
I
She's
should have
banned
let
from
them.
set.
Wait, what is Melanie said not in the script?
Yeah,
No,
I think it was.
Eugene.
I'm
is
like,
the
this
script.
Donabella Versace, but it's not
Yeah,
Oh.
it's the yuck, isn't it?
Melanie,
I-
you
Oh,
did it
shit.
hard.
So much
Welcome to
better.
the cast because
Yeah.
that was
I just thought it was,
I thought
you know.
you said that. That's amazing.
Well,
I'm
thanks.
glad I didn't go all the way to
Freddie's
Austin for
pissed.
this. That's what I'm saying.
I just, it was between
can't
quoting that
believe
and
this.
Edward Different Hands, which I also really like. But Freddie, talk about like what made you write that? Besides the fact that it's obviously a bespoke body, but let's talk about that. Let's talk about where your mind went.
It's in the book. I mean, it's you know, it's Daniel Cole's brilliant imagination, and the book is called Ragdoll, as the show is, because it opens with this incredible image. So there's a lot in the series that I can't really blame anyone else for, apart from me. But that was the image that really, I think, captivated Sally and everyone at Sid Gents when they read the book to begin with, and that was the sort of starting place of the story. This despicable invention of, I should say, the author, not me. It's, you know, that's the beginning of a real roller coaster of a book, and that's what's so exciting about it. So
the humor of it. Sorry, go on, Tally.
I was going to say Freddie did come up with some rather gruesome things later on, but you know, if he wants to blame it all on Danny Cole, then that's fine.
Just the Ragdoll. I mean, the book's called Ragdoll, to be fair.
Sorry, Thalissa, I cut you off.
No, but I was just thinking about the humor of that Melanie was saying, that, you know, we just instantly cut into a way of humor to try and cope with something that's absolutely vulgar. Is something that also interested me so much about the script when I first got hold of it. I was like, here's some human beings using the most useful form of therapy, which is to try and make each other laugh, or to try and make something as mundane as possible in their very outrageously vile lives that they do witness some horrendous things, was just something that really made sense to me. And I think it's like an ancient way that humans have, you know, dealt with trauma. And something that was in this script throughout was the way that the psychology of these characters were dealt with, and humor being at the forefront of that was just made so much sense. And yeah, we fumbled through terrible jokes, some better than others, from my fault in terms of delivery, not Freddie's writing. But yeah, it just made so much sense that the three of us would have to interact in that way.
So this is for Sally and Freddie. What do you think it is, you know, as Thalissa was saying, what do you think it is about putting humor in these situations that makes this particular thriller so unusual? For instance, I know at Sally, there's a lot of humor in Killing Eve, and that's much more a character, but this is a very grotesque pace that Rose, Edmunds, and Baxter are working, and they're consistently kind of having this banter that's quite funny. So what do you think it is about the importance of inserting wit into these situations that would otherwise be quite macabre?
Well, I think that they're very macabre anyway, but I don't think it's about inserting. I think that people are naturally very funny around things that are very dark, and they don't really want to confront or go to those dark places in themselves. So I think it's actually very human. I think it is less human actually to do dramas that don't have any wit to them, or very dark pieces that don't have any wit to them, because we protect ourselves, like Thalissa was saying, with humor. So but also Freddie's really funny, so it had to be, really.
Oh, I thought I was until this you know, knocked down a peg or two, to be honest. Embarrassed. But I think Thalissa said it very well. What I wanted to do was to think of humor as a coping mechanism, and think of the ways in which people use humor in life, and it's a coping mechanism, but it's also a way of sort of defending themselves or attacking other people, or drawing people closer to them, or showing people that they love them. It's the uses of humor that really interest me. And so writing it, what I tried not to do was to ever make it feel like a scene was constructed to make you laugh, like never to interrupt the drama, the thriller plot, and to always keep the characters grounded, and to find the humor in the interactions between these individuals coping with this horrific thing. So that was kind of the rule that I tried to set myself. Was really for it to always feel truthful to the character and the situation.
So I don't think any of the scenes are constructed in order to pay off with a gag. So it's, you know, it's the truthfulness of the human interaction and the relationships that gives rise to the humor.
That's interesting. Yeah. So this is a question for Henry and Freddie. As I was watching Nathan Rose, one of the things that I kept on kind of landing on was this idea of the psychologically flawed or compromised detective, and that is a classic of the mystery genre. And I'm wondering if Henry in your performance and Freddie in the writing of Nathan, you drew from any other incarnations of this detective, besides, of course, the source material.
I don't know if Freddie and I might have similar answers to this, because I know that Freddie was very interested or took a lot from kind of Korean detective thrillers, a couple of films, and that kind of influenced, that was a kind of a stylistic angle, I think, to like almost like a prism through which seeing the character. I don't know, like I was basing him a bit like what Thalissa was saying. Like if you look at this as like it's a real workplace, and if I just accept that this is a real workplace in which things that might be extraordinary to other people happen, but they happen to a real person, and fold in with my general sleepless nights provided to me by my 2-year-old and my 4-year-old. So there's a kind of combination of real life world weariness, a sprinkling of Korean cinema, and Freddie's jacket that doll to use as the character's main jacket. I believe it was Laurence Olivier that always said that once he's got the shoes, then he knows what the character, he knows what the character's about. Or maybe it was the nose, I can't remember. But yeah, once I had the jacket, and that folded in with my general kind of world weariness and the Korean dash of Korean cinema, and that was the package for me. Freddie can say it was the novels of Raymond Carver and whatever, that's my answer.
Freddie?
Yeah, I mean, Henry was obviously doing a lot of thinking about what to wear, and he saw me walk in one day with my only winter coat, and he's like, "Oh, great! I've got to use that. That's perfect." And for about 30 seconds, I was very flattered. I thought, Henry's a stylish guy. He thinks that Nathan Rose is a cool character, and he's looked at me and thought that fits. And I overheard him saying to someone, "Yeah, it just really works with someone who doesn't give a damn about their appearance." And I thought, wow, okay, that's the kind of guy I'm working with. Yeah, I think apart from Nathan Rose being the kind of guy who doesn't give a damn about what he looks like, I think that's right. I mean, to an extent, I wanted to sort of we've seen a lot of flawed male detectives, and it was nice to try and subvert that where I could. And I did draw a lot of inspiration from I think Memories of Murder is a phenomenal film. I watched that and was very inspired by it. which I'm sure will be apparent, and sort of to see him, Rose, sort of slipping up and making mistakes as the season goes on, and seeing that this guy isn't necessarily the maverick genius who is forgiven all his sins because he saves the day. I thought it was important to hold this guy to some kind of account, and hopefully we've done that. I hope.
I think so, certainly.
I mean, everyone wants to be Kang Ho Song, don't they? That's just the main thing about this.
So this is for Thalissa and Lucy. Each of your characters deal at certain points with overt sexism from superiors, from peers within the department. And at one point during, I believe it's the third episode, you have a discussion about what it means to be women working on the police force in this space that's overwhelmed with machismo. But Edmunds and Baxter's reactions in these instances, whether together or separately, are quite noticeable but subtle. So can you talk about that aspect, portraying that aspect of these detectives and being on the job? Was it important to you to make sure that reality was represented? And what discussions did you have about those scenes?
Go, Thalissa.
Yeah, well, it was something that instantly, when I read the script, was firstly thought, finally, here's something that also doesn't feel like I'm being shoehorned into a part. And actually the character was very much written for someone like me. Also, Baxter has to deal with the fact that racism is rife throughout the institutionalized, police force. So I think that the difference between Baxter and Edmunds' outlook as well is something to do with possibly a sort of the British versus American field about being in the police force as well is very vastly different, very huge similarities in terms of what the problem actually is. But I think there's something in Freddie's writing that he managed to get this very sort of underground racism and sexism that happens on this kind of subliminal message all the time, rather than something that's quite overt, which is just as exhausting. And I think Baxter's come from a history of having to keep up, have to, prove herself for being a good police officer and working 10 times as hard as her, white male counterparts. And something that in the research of having to play the part, just what is going on in the UK at the moment, that 3% of Black people that die in custody are Black, when 8% of our population is Black or Asian minority. And something like 4 in every 1,000 white men are stopped and search in the UK, when 38 Black or brown in every 1,000 are. So these facts are just kind of known here, and something that when I hope the British and American audience watch it will also see this kind of exhaustive struggle that is constantly there. Something that's beautiful about their relationship is that I think Baxter kind of feels that she's kind of fresh meat at the start and maybe won't be able to cope with it, and will she have the stamina to maintain working in the police force like this? And then actually, I think Edmunds teaches so much to Baxter by the end of the series about really being able to speak up and admit the problems that are blind, are vividly there in front of her. So they come at it from very different angles, but I think there's this sort of seesaw effect throughout the series that kind of levels them out. And I don't want to give too much away, but you see them working a lot closer together in that sense. I think Baxter tries to protect Edmunds a lot by possibly the way that she was treated when she was young and first started in the police force, and then realizes that she's got it sorted. I don't know if you agree.
I ditto everything. I don't think I'll be able to word it better than you, but what I loved so much about the writing is that, I mean, it's built into the foundation of the police force, and Edmunds goes on to give a big speech in, I don't know what episode, but Edmunds kind of speaks what everyone wants to say. She actually says it out loud. She goes the mile to be like, this isn't right, this isn't cool, why don't we talk about things? Like, Edmunds is all about feelings, and She gives a speech about Freud renouncing his work because it all starts at the workplace. And like, can I talk about that episode? I don't know if I can, but my whole point in that is that like there's all these like subtle, it's in the writing, it's very subtle, but Edmunds is kind of the voice of it all. She's not really scared to speak up about it. And I think that her relationship with Baxter is very sweet. She really respects Baxter. She knows that this is going to be her wingman. And I think she kind of has to like fight her way to prove that she's supposed to be there. And I think that Edmunds desperately wants to do the right thing and say the right thing. And she definitely oversteps her boundaries with Baxter sometimes in that space. But I think it all comes from a good place. And I think that towards the end, like Thalissa said, Edmunds obviously learns a lot from Baxter, but I think Edmunds also teaches Baxter that it's okay to kind of wear your heart on your sleeve a little more and talk about shit.
There's this brilliant moment when Baxter says to Edmunds that it's like, you're very sure of yourself and, you know, your TikTok Karl Marx speech about her, and that she kind of puts her down in the there's probably a bit of like defensiveness of, you know, this awful feminist, anti-feminist thing of like, another woman in the workplace, will I be as good as the next one, sort of thing. And then they realize that they actually just need to be on each other's side a lot more.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's something kind of, so British, ingrained, like I must just look as if I'm totally fine at every moment because this is how I'm going to continue. And yeah, Edmunds is just beautifully American.
Very American.
That's exactly.
But she's also very evolved. She's also very evolved. I love it when you had that line, Lucy. Just so you're clear, I don't respond well to that tone.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when you're saying it to me, and there's this look that I give you, which is just like, what?
Who is
that?
This? Yeah.
I think that's very important. That thing there. I mean, I think what's fascinating is that Edmunds became so much of an audience. Is so often the audience's point of view, and that beat I think is important to what we were discussing previously about Rose. Is it's okay to think this guy is too much, and it's okay to think that this guy's way of working is not healthy, because we have Edmunds say that to him like straight up, and we are so often with her that it was a way of showing an audience that we are not that we are able to look at Rose critically, and that all our characters are going to kind of be seen from multiple perspectives and interrogated from multiple perspectives.
Yeah, I mean, Edmunds pulls the wool off over her eye, off over Baxter's eyes throughout the series, you know, and I think as the audience has been, hopefully will watch it being like, yes, finally they're listening to this woman.
Yeah. She's a bit like the little boy in The Emperor's New Clothes that keep going, he's not wearing any clothes.
And it is this subtle, there are these subtleties and it comes up throughout the episodes that I've seen of just a little, like there's the exchange between Baxter and Edmunds where she goes, I don't even know your first name. Yeah. And so she says her first name is Lake. She goes, I'm British, I can't call you Lake. Yeah. So what are some of the other kind of differences that you wanted to kind of integrate into the relationship that Edmunds has not only with Baxter, but with Rose, that aren't necessarily saying we're British and she's American? Like what are those elements that, those subtleties that you kind of might have woven into this story that look at those differences, those cultural differences?
I think there was also, Freddie, there was the thing about there was this sort of slight perceived sort of cultural tiny little age gap as well that we talked about quite a lot, which you get in the reference to The Simpsons.
Yeah, I think Edmunds brings like a nice, I guess she's Gen Z, like a nice Gen Z feel to the character, because there's a lot of, because I'm a millennial. I feel like she's not a millennial. I feel like she's maybe a little bit younger than I am, but
Lucy Hale also looks about 9.5, so you're
Henry, you also look 9.5 today.
It's because we haven't been working every day for 4 months.
No, we're sleeping. It's great.
Henry looks like he's going to a tea party.
I am. Everyone's having tea on the other side of the camera.
Right.
I also have to bring up, I have to ask Why are you hammering so hard on vegans in that whole first?
Me.
You, Freddie
Oh,
Cyborg.
Yes.
But
He's
I
in the
think
payment
hammer
I
on
would
vegans.
say,
He's in the payment of big meat.
yeah, I'm in big meat. I'm in, yeah.
Texan Farming Commission has given him a huge amount of money.
Yeah, it certainly was in the script that the vegan stuff was basically building to Rose making a sort of joke about vegans, or Baxter
bacon
makes a joke about
sandwich or
vegans, and it's sort of it kind of feels like it bounces back on them because Edmunds is so guileless and upfront and grounded and right, and it's just like it's a way of showing British people being sort of British and sort of kind of mean-spirited. Not exactly mean-spirited, but it's just like anything sort of, it's this insular island view. And I think what was so beautifully done by Lucy is with that Edmunds character, you sort of you sort of I think you believe everything that Edmunds says. It doesn't sound absurd, even within this context of sort of gnarlier, sort of broken down British people. It's sort of, it's not, it's very authentic, and it's very authentically felt, and I think it's very difficult to sort of deny her rationale. Later on in the season, we do complicate that, and she's not all that she seems, and but I think when I started writing the season, I'd just come back from some work in America. I'd spent 4 months in Los Angeles and feeling very, very British, very, very European, but really falling in love with the way the people I work with and the friends I made out there were just really straightforward and really great at talking and very, all those things that it's very easy as a British person. Like, I'm smiling at the idea of saying that I liked that these people were mindful. Like, I can't even bring myself to say that. And of course, it's wonderful to be that, and it's fantastic. And so I thought that what could be fun for the Edmunds character is that as a sort of, it's a sort of superpower in Britain. It's just, it cuts through the noise and it cuts through to the sort of heart of the matter in a way which Baxter and Rose are so used to sort of talking around the houses, and everything is inference and buried, and you never express your needs in Britain. You never say what you want from someone else. You can't communicate. And Edmunds is completely different. She has that, and she's equipped with the language to say what she wants and what she needs from people. And I think that's sort of what Thalissa maybe was saying. Like, it's really nice to hear that Thalissa kind of responded to that relationship, because I do think when I set out to write the two characters, it felt like Edmunds having the language to articulate what she needs and expects from people is something which Baxter has never been allowed and never allowed herself, and maybe came up just before that was a thing, which I certainly feel. I'm 34, and I sort of feel like when I was young, that it doesn't come naturally to me, that kind of language, and God knows I've got it so easy by comparison to so many people, but I don't have the language for that kind of stuff. And so
what Lucy brings to it as well is there is she's enormously sort of sympathetic, and you like her immediately, whereas
thanks.
There is, and I'm moving on to you in a minute, but it's just so that it doesn't, I don't think from a British perspective that the American side of it comes across as irritating. It comes across as, you're right, you're completely right. And then Thalissa is, and Henry, but that extraordinary, it is so British, this thing of, like you were saying before, just talking around the houses and never saying what you really feel, and never saying what your needs are, or that you're feeling sad, or that you're feeling desperate, or that you miss someone. So that, there are extraordinary tender scenes between Rose and Baxter, where you see little cracks where they start to admit what they need from each other, and it's completely heartbreaking because they've never really done it. So I think
going away from like America or British thing, just as personalities between the three of them. I mean, there's something also that Edmunds has, which is she looks after herself. And I think Baxter and Rose are a bit jealous that she has the time to be vegan, or has the time to sort of, you know, there's a yoga mat on her desk, and, you know, she looks and she questions Rose, like, you need to look out for who you are and what you bring to society, because that's going to complicate how you deal with crime. And for Baxter and Rose, I think that they go, how dare you feel like it's all about you, when actually it is so important for them to look on themselves, and they start to do that, and they start to reflect on who they are as people in society, what Baxter can bring with her race to people in society. That comes later in the episode as well. And I think once they start reflecting on themselves a bit more and being usefully more selfish by looking after them, looking at themselves a bit more, they can do their job better. And I think that there is definitely something, and I don't know if it's British or American, I just know that in these characters, Rose and Baxter have got this like solid way of that they've just ingrained way that they've decided to work, which is just don't eat, smoke loads of cigarettes, don't sleep, come to work really early, and that's how you get the job done. Whereas Edmunds is saying there's a different way of doing this.
I actually love the detail of Edmunds bringing the sprig of mint to the crime scene instead of necessarily getting like some menthol. That was just a great kind of announcement of who she was. And I don't know if that was in the source material or that was something that was improvised.
Was that Daniel Cole, Freddie, or was that Freddie? I don't know. I'm going to say that was Freddie. That was a Freddie moment. Because then she goes on to say that she's not doing mentholated products.
She's not doing palm oil. She's not doing
oil. But
I'm not sure Edmunds was at the crime scene. Edmunds is a boy in.
Oh right,
in,
Edmunds
in
was
book. Edmunds is an English.
So you're right. So it's a
Freddie special. The mint was
Freddie's loath to take credit for any zingers, but the sad truth is that a lot of them belong to him.
A lot of them,
Well, it definitely was.
Apart from
terribly British
Donatello the
about
Star Suture.
Apart from the greatest zinger of all, Donatello the Suture.
All right. Well, we have some fan questions, so I'd like to get to those. You ready?
Yeah.
We have Julia asking, what was the most exciting part to film? And that can be anyone to answer that.
Lucy, how about almost drowned in a tunnel?
I have thought. No, I think the most, I guess, exhilarating scene. There's a scene between Thalissa and I that involved a lot of water, a car crash, some stunts.
A snake.
But we just so happened to film in this tunnel, but it was a wind tunnel, so we were very, very cold. I think that is like my most memorable day of filming ever. But Thalissa, you're just the best. I honestly had so much fun. It was a lot, obviously, and it turned out great, but you're just a joy. I had so much fun with you that day.
Me too. It was like Legoland. It was like thought up.
So I think for me, that was the most memorable. What about you guys?
I actually quite enjoyed our sort of days of working in the office and really getting into the sort of smaller scenes where you could really have fun with the way that these people interacted. Obviously, it's fun to do stunts, but I think days when we were sat for hours on end in a car and actually just getting to know each other was just so memorable.
Early on too, yeah.
These two are just heroes. It was just such a joy. And Henry and I had worked together very briefly beforehand. And it was just so good to know it was on this. And Lucy, just come back. Where are you?
I will. I will.
I'll give you a very quick nerdy answer, which was that there was one scene where we were filming on a train station, and I managed to see a train coming way down in the distance and time the most dramatic lines of dialogue at the exact moment that the train went past my face, and I did a kind of like whoosh. My hair went like this, and it was like winning the World Cup. It's like the greatest moment of my life.
Wow.
That is some extraordinary.
I guess you had to be there. I guess you had to be there.
So we have a question from Tamara, and this is for the creator. So for Freddie and Sally, did you have a particular British detective show in mind when creating this series?
Not really.
Rowan
That's
Atkinson's
really
Findlay
short
Lawyer.
Great.
Allie,
Yeah, there's
not
lots.
really.
Nah.
The Bell.
There's lots that I really enjoy. I wouldn't say
Yes,
that I
those that I
have
really
one
enjoy. It's
specifically
amazing
in
ones like
mind.
Cracker was just
Mhm.
brilliant, which I don't know if the was there an American version as well, or did the original play in the States, which was again, it was incredibly hard hitting. It was really about the psychology of crime. You knew very early on in Cracker who the perpetrator was, but it also had extraordinary sort of dark wit to it. So that's one of my all-time favorites in the UK, but that's because I'm older than everybody else on this panel.
It might have been out before Lucy was born.
I think it might have been out before most people were born.
But you know, Crocker actually had a very large and devoted fan. It had a very devoted fan base in the US. So
Yeah.
that's not an out of
good to
out of
know.
bounds
Good to
reference.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Freddie, did you have anything?
Well, like I said, I think I took my inspiration more from kind of movies because I felt like so often if you're doing a drama, things have to be very serious. On TV, it felt like growing up, you didn't often see a lot of humor in serious situations, which is crazy because I think if you think about Hollywood, it's not. Hollywood movies always have humor in them, even if it's very serious. And so it's not revolutionary in any way to say that people can also make you laugh. And so I think I took more influence from kind of maybe American things or movies than a lot of British drama, I suppose. But I mean, of a sort of older kind, I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't really got a very good answer for that.
Well, I'm going to build on that question. And actually, this is for, I guess it would be for Sally and Henry since it's a Killing Eve reference. But for anybody, I'm assuming that everybody here has watched Killing Eve. What would you say would be the through line that would maybe join these two series if someone were to cross that bridge from Killing Eve over to Ragdoll? What would it be?
Probably the actor Henry Lloyd-Hughes, I'd say.
I would just say Henry Lloyd-Hughes.
I'm just picking that out of thin air.
All right.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Tonally speaking, thematic.
Tonally speaking.
There you go.
Tonally speaking, I think again it's the dark wit, and actually and the emphasis really is on character and caring about those characters and wanting to know what happens to them. And Henry Lloyd-Hughes.
But also, Villanelle's a genius, right? As in Jodie is also a genius, sidebar, but the character Villanelle is a genius. And I think weirdly, in the Ragdoll, i.e. who's behind the Ragdoll, in a weird way, we're also dealing with unpacking a very, very intricate, twisted mind.
Yeah.
And it's so horrible, and yet there is, as we've discussed, with the actual object and indeed the plot, a kind of grotesque beauty to it at the same time. So there's that macabre, but also a kind of marvel at the beauty of how twisted it is, which I think that's certainly at the heart of Killing Eve. I mean, because Jodie does it so well, it's like no one should enjoy. I'm thinking of that scene in the hospital, when she steals the pajamas.
Yeah, breaks a little boy's neck.
And she breaks a little boy's neck. No one should be thinking that that's cool. Hang on a second, you can't be going around hurting kids, sick kids in hospital. And yet somehow, Jodie, she makes it this other thing. And I think there's this. There's these elements of that maybe you're rooting for whoever's behind the Ragdoll. I don't know. You'll have to tell us, Melanie. You'll have to tell us.
I don't know if I want to admit. I don't want to give that away quite yet.
I think the style is also important, and Killing Eve obviously had great music, and we're very lucky to have a composer called Moses Boyd, who's a phenomenal musician as well. Who is I think he was nominated for our Mercury Prize last year or something with his debut album, and he's doing a phenomenal score. And I think that was something that Killing Eve and obviously Sally and Sid Gentle have is lots of style, and so they gave us the opportunity to pursue a very individual feeling show and to try and make something that feels distinctive, and that was great. So that was a similarity too, I hope.
The score was amazing. I'm sorry, please go ahead.
No, I just saying thank you, Freddie, because I'm very British. I'll just go, I don't know.
Yeah, the score was actually extraordinary in that it built upon the tension in each scene. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And I'm wondering if that was something, is that something you worked with the composer on, or was it did he kind of look and say, okay, this is what it is, and it turned out to be brilliant from the first go?
I think, well, Moses is part of a group, a sort of loose, I suppose, group of musicians or scene of musicians. There's lots of jazz in London, and it feels very cosmopolitan. It feels very London, but I think it also hopefully translates and feels transatlantic too. And it's very his references are very diverse. They're coming from all kinds of places, and that feeling felt very specific to the kind of London that we wanted to represent on screen. And I think this is his first score, which is incredible, really, because I think it's so
he's
great.
Also 12 years old as well. He's a genius.
He's such a nice guy.
I can vouch that it sounds it sounds like London now. Like it's absolutely what I listen to. It's Nabaya Garcia, Shabaka Hutchins. You know, it's got this like South London jazz. I call it bum bag jazz, because you go to these nights out and there's like this amazing place in New Cross, and it's called Steam Down, and it's just all these young kids with like Nike bum bags raving hard to jazz played by young Black people, and it's just it makes me weep. So it means so much to me that the sound of it has London now. It's so current. It's almost as important as, you know, what Dave Pym did with the cinematography of it, making sure he's filming these buildings that you don't know how long they're going to stay up for. It's like, let's show what London is now, even though we've got this kind of dystopian, very retro kind of feel to the look of the piece, which I think is quite useful to help with the kind of especially the sort of disjointed, what's what I'm trying to say, like the vulgarity of it can be accepted maybe a bit more in the London that we have now, because it's like, oh, is this what happens in my city? But it's kind of, yes, no, so it's a bit safer. But yeah, the sound of it was just like the heartbeat of London right now.
Yeah, and it's also the way sorry to interrupt, Lucy, but the start, as you said, Melanie, the way in which it's used stylistically, I think, is so kind of transcendental. It pushes the images that you're seeing on screen into this other place that, again, maybe Moses is just to the manner born as far as like doing film scores. He just first time and he's just in the zone. But the way it's used is a very, I don't want to say the word avant-garde, but like it's its own thing. It's its own language, which I do think, you know, Care of Sally we've seen in Killing Eve, but I also think we're taking it to an edgier place, like a more experimental place musically, which I think is really exciting.
Yeah.
No, Thalissa, and also you can cut this out if you want, but Thalissa, I meant to tell you, Moses performed at ACL and I missed it. I saw it a day too late.
No.
I was like looking at the lineup and I was like, Moses.
Waved your little Ragdoll.
I was like yelling at my friends. I was like, he's doing the score for Ragdoll. What are you talking about? And I missed him. But anyway, he's brilliant. I just saw the cut with his music in there. Just completely, like you guys said, just makes it a whole different thing, elevates. He's brilliant.
I have to give a shout out. I suppose working with a brilliant music editor as well called Lawrence. So they're working fantastically together. But Moses is just, and you listen to new episodes, there's a new cue for episode 4, which is just so brilliant. And the drumming on it is amazing. And no, he's just.
Is it him singing at the start?
What the beginning of the beginning?
Yeah, is it his voice as well?
It's really hard because I think I mentioned to you on the phone yesterday when he did his temp for that, it was him singing, and he said, "I think I can get a better voice than this." But Freddie, do you think it's Moses singing at the beginning of the title track?
Now you've said that he was trying to get the best voice for it, I'm just in a bit of an awkward situation. It might. I mean, he turned it round so quickly.
Yeah,
I can only assume it's him. But,
yeah, and then
yeah,
an amazing woman's voice, because he
very
tried with a woman's voice for the later bits, and for a male, and the woman's voice just is brilliant. So he's just, we're really lucky.
You got the trainer spin-off, you got the soundtrack album. Should we talk about action figures?
Yeah. Like, and Mr. Potato Head with the Ragdoll.
Oh my.
Prisoner's tracksuit.
Well, on that note, I think we need to wrap, but thank you. This has been such an amazing discussion. I think it's really captured what a total experience Ragdoll is, and I can't wait for people to experience on AMC Plus. Thanks so much for your time. Lovely to talk to each of you.
Melanie,
thank you
very much.